All right, let's dive into Exodus chapter 13. This is such a fascinating part of the story, you know? It's all about that moment right after a huge, life-changing event, in this case, liberation from slavery. And it tackles this massive question: how do you make sure the future generations never, ever forget what just happened? It's all about building a future on a foundation of memory. So let's get into it.
I mean, really think about this for a second. How do you make a memory last forever? It's not a small question. We're talking about 400 years of slavery, this unbelievable, miraculous escape, and the very real danger that in a few generations it all just becomes a faded story. So how do you bake that memory, that experience, into the very soul of a brand new nation? That's the challenge.
And here's the answer they get, the very first instruction. Moses tells the people, remember this day. And listen, this isn't just a friendly suggestion. It's a command. It's the cornerstone of everything else that's about to happen. Because, as you're about to see, true remembrance, well, it takes a plan.
All right, first up, a command to remember. You think the first step would be to march forward, right? But no, the first part of the plan is actually about looking back. It's all about creating laws and, importantly, rituals that turn memory from a passive thought into an active, everyday thing.
And what's so wild is when you actually look at the original text, these aren't just, vague, feel-good ideas. They are super specific instructions. And think about the timing. This is happening at the exact moment of freedom. The dust hasn't even settled on their escape, and the very first order of business is, okay, how are we going to remember this? And what they're really trying to solve for here is just human nature, right? The people who actually lived through it, no way they're ever going to forget. But what about their kids or their grandkids? The real challenge is to build a memory that's so strong, so baked in, that it can survive for generations and generations. It has to be a collective memory.
So, on to the first big tool for remembrance, the Feast of Freedom. And get this, it's not a statue or a history book. It's a festival. It's an experience. It's something you do with your hands, with your family, with your whole community. Now, at the very center of this festival is a kind of a weird rule about bread, specifically unleavened bread. So you gotta ask, why all the fuss about bread? Well, it's because this super simple food is about to become a powerful, physical symbol of the entire escape story.
Okay, so here's how it works. For a full 7 days, you can only eat unleavened bread. This is the bread of haste, right? It physically reminds you that they had to leave Egypt in such a hurry they couldn't even wait for their bread to rise. You're literally tasting history. And the last step is key. You have to tell the story to your kids. The ritual is designed to make them ask, why are we doing this? And boom, that's your opening to tell the story. The ritual creates the question, and the story is the answer. Genius.
And this really gets to the heart of it. The text uses this beautiful phrase, that the law should be a sign unto thee upon thine hand and for a memorial between thine eyes. It's a metaphor, of course. The idea is that this memory should guide everything you do, that's your hand, and it should shape the way you see the world, that's your eyes. It's not just a story you know, it's supposed to become a part of who you are.
Okay, moving on to the next part, and the tone gets a lot more serious here. We're talking about the price of the firstborn. This command ties the memory of freedom directly back to that terrifying final plague in Egypt, the one that finally broke Pharaoh's will. And this quote from the chapter lays it all out. It says, essentially, because Pharaoh wouldn't let us go, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, but ours were saved. So this law about setting aside the firstborn, it's a direct, permanent reminder of that night. It's a memory that's literally rooted in both salvation and sacrifice.
And check out the distinction the law makes here. It's fascinating. For the firstborn of an animal, you have a choice. You can redeem it with a lamb, or, well, you have to kill it. But for the firstborn of a person, redemption is mandatory. There's no other option. This puts an incredible value on human life while still making sure this very somber memory is honored. It's a constant, living reminder of what their freedom cost.
All right, so with those rules for remembering set in place, the story shifts gears. We're moving from instructions to action. The people are finally on the move. The long road out of Egypt begins now.
And immediately you hit a question that probably jumps out at anyone looking at a map. There was a super direct route they could have taken right along the coast, the way of the land of the Philistines. It would have been way faster. So why didn't they go that way? Well, the Bible gives a really interesting answer, and it's all about human psychology. God apparently thought, hey, these people just got out of slavery. They're not a battle-hardened army. If they ran into a war right away, they might get so scared that they'd actually turn around and go back to Egypt. Can you imagine? So the long way around was actually the safer way, to protect their fragile, newfound freedom.
And then there's this amazing little detail tucked into the story. In the middle of this massive migration of an entire people, we learn that Moses is carrying the bones of Joseph. Remember Joseph? He died centuries earlier in Egypt, and he made his family promise that when the day finally came to leave, they'd take his body with them. I mean, talk about memory in action. This is a promise kept across hundreds of years, physically connecting their past with their future.
So now they're on this long, roundabout journey through a huge, empty wilderness, which leads to the next logical question. How on earth do they know where they're going? And this brings us to the final and maybe the most jaw-dropping part of the chapter, their guide.
So, their guide wasn't a map or a person. It was a constant, miraculous presence. During the day, they were led by a giant pillar of cloud, which, you have to imagine, also gave them some much-needed shade from that brutal desert sun. And then at night, that same pillar transformed into a pillar of fire, giving them light to travel by and probably some warmth, too. The point is, they were never, ever alone. Help was there 24/7.
And the chapter closes with this incredible statement of assurance. It says, the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night never left its place in front of the people. It wasn't a sometimes thing. It was a constant, unwavering guide leading them forward. What a powerful way to show that even on this long, hard road, they were absolutely not on their own.
So, all of this brings us right back to where we started. This chapter gives us these two incredible tools for memory, doesn't it? On one hand, you have ritual, the things we do, like eating the bread. On the other, you have story, the things we tell our children. So here's the final question for you. Which one do you think is more powerful? Which one truly makes a memory last forever? Something to chew on. Thanks for digging into this with me.